I'm here with Molly Sheridan today, and she's just got back from a really exciting trip that she's been on as a representative of the Salvation Army. So, kia ora, Molly.
Kia
Nice to
ora.
have you back in New Zealand. Can you just first of all tell us where it was that you went?
Sure, yeah. So, it's really good to be back in New Zealand. I've been back like a week now. And I got to spend 2 weeks in New York at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. So that was based, in Manhattan at the United Nations kind of global headquarters. And it was just a really cool time, a really interesting and insightful time. But overall an incredible experience. So.
Yeah. Had you been to New York before?
No, I hadn't been to the
Okay.
US before, so it was a
Oh,
whole
wow.
culture shock on top of
Yeah.
being at this event as well.
And so you said you spent 2 weeks there. Was some of that sightseeing, or was it all kind of business for the whole time?
So I had a week of the commission, and then I stayed on an extra week to do some sightseeing and some exploring, and it was real cool.
I'm glad you got to do that kind of thing while you're there as well, given you hadn't been there before. So this commission on the status of women, can you tell us what is that about? Like, what is the point of this coming together?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Commission of the Status of Women is something that happens every year, and essentially it is where governments, organizational bodies, NGOs get together and kind of just start conversations and report back to the United Nations about what is happening in their countries in terms of the development and education and I guess awareness of the issues that women are facing in our society. We hear from what organizations are doing and like the projects that they run all around the world. We got to hear reports from like the ministers of women or families from each country and what in a government level they're doing as well. So to be able to hear from lots of different voices and lots of different people doing lots of different things was really eye-opening and really insightful, and especially as like the Salvation Army and our presence there as one of those organizations and as a Christian organization, it was really important and really beneficial for us to not only share what we're doing and what programs we're running and what our response to some of those crises is, but also to kind of hear what other people are doing and how we can support or incorporate that as well.
So it sounds like there's a really diverse group of people from all across the world, all different. It's good that the church is part of it, but all different kinds of organisations getting on the same page, which is great because, you don't know what people are doing or experiencing across the other side of the world necessarily. So how many people were at this altogether? It sounds like it was a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but in the thousands, definitely. That was a range of people who were speaking in the General Assemblies or in the United Nations events, but then there were also many side events that organizations would run just to kind of educate, what they're doing specifically. So altogether, probably thousands. And the Salvation Army had a really good delegation. There were 14 of us that had been selected by international headquarters. And then there were also those that worked for our International Social Justice Commission or, were working in those fields around the globe that came as well.
Okay, well, and that in itself must have been really cool just to meet other Salvationist women around the world.
Definitely.
So tell me, it sounds like you probably got lots and lots of information and lots of things, but is there one thing that stands out for you that was a really surprising thing that you heard that you weren't quite prepared for?
Yeah, definitely. I honestly think there were a few. Like, I went into it already being passionate about the subject and already like having some research behind me on it. But I guess just hearing firsthand testimonies of like the things that women had experienced, especially in our developing countries, was quite confronting and was really something that you had to sit with and go, oh, yes, this is actually happening. And it was for the first time had been put right in front of you, if that makes sense, because we can say these things and go, but that's on the other side of the world, that's nowhere near me. But to have it put in front of you is quite confronting, but in a really good way, because it made you want to do something, and it made you want to take action, and it made it more real, I guess.
Do you have one particular story that you heard that you could tell us just to snip it off?
Yeah, sure. We heard of a young woman. She essentially was prostituting herself to pay for sanitary pads. And so that in itself, this commodity that women take for granted, or women, in these first world countries take for granted, to be having to do things like that just to get this, what should be, essential and we shouldn't have to think about, was really confronting. And there were lots of conversations on things like menstrual health and menstrual, like the accessibility to those resources that were quite, you don't think about in New Zealand. And so,
Granted.
yeah, exactly. So even things like that, just made it all the more real that actually this is still a problem, and this is still, something that is going on. And like the fact that it is quite often taboo to be, on your menstrual cycle and things like that was, also very confronting. And that is in a religious sense as well. So as a Christian, to hear things like that, you just sit and go, oh, whoa, okay. Like, it is very, it was very enlightening to hear about.
And you said that it made you want to take action. So as you've come back now and life returns to normal, back to work today, how is this going to change you, and what are you going to carry forward, and what are you going to do as a result of what you've learned?
Definitely. Yeah, I've come back with a little bit of like a to-do list, which is good. But I know it was really eye-opening to realize you're not the only one in this fight. And as the 14 of us as a delegation, we really were conscious about what we wanted to do coming back to our territories, and really wanted to be on the same page, that we were all kind of calling for the same thing or wanting to take action for the same thing. So definitely now it's how can I, as a person in our territory, educate and spread awareness about what I've learned, but also what can we do as a territory to better assist in these ways, and to better, use our women's ministries in those ways as well. And I think as a youth worker coming back, young women really stood out to me. And so I think my question coming back is, how can we educate and empower our young women more coming through to also take action, and to also be educated, and to also be aware of what their peers are currently facing. So lots to do, lots of conversations to be had, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and I think what you said though is key, because often these things can just feel, they can feel too big, and they can feel too far away on the other side of the world. But something that we can all do is educate ourselves so that we have an awareness and pass that on, so that people, you can't change anything or do anything if you don't even know that it's a problem, or perhaps you've got your head buried in the sand and you're choosing not to acknowledge that it's a problem. But actually starting conversations and talking about it, becoming more aware, will lead to the empowering of women. Thanks for talking to me, Molly. Ka kite.
Thank you.